Okay, so folks, we're here with another new music review Q&A session, and we're with Darren from Participant Band, and Darren's going to tell us all about what they're doing, what they're all about, what the music genre is and that, and then we're going to get into some more serious grilling. So go ahead, Darren.
Okay, so I'm Darren from Participant. We are what are we? We're a two-piece duo band. I don't know what you call us. I think we're two people who have got together to create indie rock music from our own studio in deepest, darkest Derbyshire, and we're on a track to try and release a song a month for the rest of our existence and lives, for no other reason than that fits in with how we want to work as a band.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it. We're born out of being in another band together, which, as many bands do, fell apart with a horrible teenage breakup. And we've kind of stuck together and just said, well, what if we just kind of wrote remotely and wrote what we want to write with no sort of agenda, and see how that goes. And the process is working really, really well. It helps that we actually enjoy each other's company. So that's kind of what we do, I guess.
Yeah. So when you say remotely, are you in different parts of the country or world? Or?
So I'm here right now in Sheffield.
Okay.
Our studio is at the other participant member's house, Lee's house, in Derbyshire. The writing process tends to be kind of triggered remotely. I've got my home studio here. He's got a studio down there. And then we get together, finalize stuff, work on stuff by sending it through the powers of the internet. It's almost back to the old school way of when you were writing, you were recording stuff on tape and you were sending the tape in the post to your mate. We're kind of doing that. And then the recording process happens together.
Okay. And is that all in the box, DAW style?
We're very fortunate that our studio we're capable of recording amps live. We obviously, all the vocals are live. Any tool that we can possibly lay our hands on to do so, we do so. In terms of recording process, if anyone's interested, it's all on Logic Pro. Drums are remotely recorded by two guys called Jack Wrench, who used to play with Jamie Lemon, Arcane Roots, and he's currently with a band called James and the Cold Gun. So they're recorded down there. They send back, and then we rebuild the track from the demo from there.
Right, so it's quite a lot of work goes in outside of the actual playing an instrument. Yeah,
absolutely. It's an internet management project, I think, more than it is a music project.
And do you find that works pretty well?
It works for us.
Yeah.
Our previous bands, it totally didn't work for. We should have probably spent more time together than we did. Yeah. But for me and Lee, it works really, really well. And it's almost become a fun Sunday hobby. And as a result of that, we've been more prolific than most of the other bands we've played in.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I asked a couple of people who've been solo artists was, how do they feel about not getting feedback from anyone else in the band? You know, like when you one of you or maybe two of you, you're the only two people putting your thing in and having an opinion. Whereas, you know, if you've got 4 or 5 members, there's quite a lot more opinions kicking around. And does that shape the music a bit more? Do you feel that just the two of you doing what you do, you're getting the full beans? Do you know what I mean? You get everything out of it, or?
That's a really good question, because in every other band I've ever played in, much of the writing, even if it's done on an acoustic guitar in your bedroom, it's then taken to a studio and we kind of practice 3-4 times a week. We get in the studio and we work the songs up, and it becomes a much more of a collaborative thing. Now the process is still collaborative, but I guess there's only 2 people collaborating. And you know, if one person runs with an idea, that tends to be the idea that ends up being finished. I think it becomes more of a layering project. So, the initial idea is formed, and then we are layering ideas on top of that. So, it might be to the detriment of the songwriting that there's only two of us, and that it's much more remote. But equally so, the stuff we're putting out, we're really proud of. We think it's good. So I certainly wouldn't change the dynamic of how we're doing it. Right now.
And are you mixing everything in house, mastering it all in house, or farming
so
everything out?
once the project has been recorded and finished musically, we then send the project down to a guy called Chris Coulter, again, who's mixed and mastered some very good stuff. He mixes and masters, and then it's sent back, and then it is finished. We're quite weird in terms of how we approach the mixing and mastering process, I guess, because we generally feel once it's left us, when it comes back, the answer is generally yes. Yeah, we've signed that off because not that we've lost interest in the process at that point, but we've kind of sent it down saying, here's our rough mix, make it better than this. When it comes back, we kind of go, yeah, that's fine. Or if there's the odd tweak that's to be made, it's one revision. I think you could end up tweaking and I'd much sooner say, right, that's a piece of art, it's done, it was of the time, and now let's move on to the next one.
I think that is the danger of doing everything yourself, is that you can't leave it alone sometimes.
100%.
And at least I've always suggested to a lot of people that even if you don't use someone else's final mix, I think it's always worth letting someone have a go on one or two of your tracks, just to see what they throw into the mix, just what it comes out like.
I've always wanted to work with a producer, somebody who is involved at an earlier stage in the songwriting process. Unfortunately, the producers I want to work with cost a lot of money. But actually, to have someone in who is external to whatever size band you've got to say, I think you're aiming a little low with the middle A, I think you can rewrite that. How about slowing the whole thing down? That vocal line's not good enough. That's the chorus, not that bit. That would be an amazing experience to work with, and to have that. I think we are in effect self-producing. We're just not self-mixing and mastering.
I think sometimes I spoke to a guy, Steve Baker. I don't know if you saw that. I did a Q&A with Steve.
Yes,
and it was quite interesting because he takes on some pretty raw tracks really, and will take it from the start almost to the finish. And in that, and I've had this happen myself, where you hear a mix and you hear something in it that is completely different to the artist, and you might put that on and they'll say, I didn't even think of that. But I think that's one of the good things about having some external influence.
100%.
And even just at the level that you're doing it, you send it sort of almost ready, but just tweak all these little bits and polish it up and whatnot. And they still, even then, might put the guitar solo up a bit louder than you might have done, make it something a bit quieter than you might have done.
Certainly Chris certainly picks out, there's been moments where he's picked out a melody which I thought was buried, but actually he's picked it out and said, oh no, hang on a second, that's a real hook, let's let's pick that up. Whenever you trust somebody else to mix your music, you really are asking for their opinions, because I think if you're sending your music away to be mixed, you should be trusting the person to do something that you aren't doing.
Definitely. And if it doesn't work the first time, then you try some others until, even the big names go through a number of producers, don't they, until they find one that clicks.
100%.
So touching on the instrumentation, that sort of stuff, who's doing what? Have you each got your role and you stick to it?
No.
Or what?
No. I think that's what we are really enjoying about the project, in the fact that between the two of us, we are a capable bass player, a capable guitar player. I'm a capable singer. And so almost whoever's doing what the other person is doing is sat in the driving seat. And there are some songs that Lee has played all of the instrumentation on. There are some songs that I've done. Most of the time, if we had to stick a role, Lee tends to be the bass player. I tend to be the guitar player. But that's really not a hard and fast rule. I think the only hard and fast rule we've got is that I am definitely the singer and Lee definitely is not the singer.
Right. And what's your go-to sort of instrument setup, guitar, amp, that kind of chain of command?
Guitar-wise at the moment, we are tending to go with the classics of one-track humbuckers, one-track single coils. It's generally speaking, we've got a couple of Les Paul customs in different tunings, so that tends to be one of the tracks. And then I've got a very, very nice 57, 58 Strat, which tends to be the other one. If anyone's vaguely interested, we always record in quads. So there are literally 4 tracks of every single guitar track on there. So there are 4 rhythm tracks. There'll be 2 Les Pauls and 2 Strats on every single thing. In terms of amps, generally speaking, there is a Marshall JVM on one of the tracks. The other one tends to be either one of our Orange amps. We're using an OR15 in the studio, which is really nice. That seems to be working really well. And then we're fortunate. I've seen your Kemper in the background. We've also got a Kemper. We've also got a Quad Cortex as well, which records really, really well. So again, if there's an amp sound that we haven't got in our armory, we can always augment it with that. And every single one of the tracks also has a DI to it, so that if it needs to be reamped, Chris can reamp it down in his studio in London. So you've got the full load going on there then. The mixed tracks, the tracks for mixing, there is a lot of tracks that go down.
I mean, do you know, recently I saw something on it's George Michael, I think it was Faith actually, the track. And the amount of acoustic guitars on that track is insane, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I read...
Sounds like one guitar, but...
I read that Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins, at one point, it's got 20 guitar tracks playing. Again, like, one of Chris's mix tips is always, if you start with the single track playing, if you want to make it sound bigger for the chorus, you put all 4 tracks in. It's a really simple mix track, and you're obviously panning them to fill up the full audio space. And that works really well.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to try and pull up one of the tracks. Let's just have a look. So I'm looking at the first track on this Spotify list, which is Yohatsu.
Oh, Yohatsu. Yeah. Okay, that's the single that we really cleverly released in between Christmas and New Year.
I'll play it and I'll sort of talk through it a little bit, and we'll just see what we think.
Okay.
Okay, so it's quite drummy. It's quite a lot of guitar going on.
I mean, I think this track is really representative of the kind of where we operate. I guess we tend to be a classic 4-piece of guitar, bass, drums, and vocals. I suppose there's odd bits in there which are kind of interesting. The lyrical content of this is quite an interesting one. I can't remember the lyrics off the top of my head, but Johatsu is like this Japanese art of deliberately losing yourself and deliberately kind of dropping out and disappearing from society, which I've always kind of loved the idea of. So it's kind of very much about that and that kind of concept.
Yeah, I'm not a songwriter. Do you know what I mean? I can help with mixes. I can record stuff. I can do guitar melodies and riffs and that sort of stuff. But I'm not a songwriter as such. And I find it quite impressive, really, I think, 'cause we're talking to a lot of people about this sort of thing now, about how much actually goes into writing that particular track and what you were thinking about, why the lyrics are what they are, why the music is shaped in a certain way around those lyrics. You know, it's like, which comes first, the lyrics or the riffs and the guitars?
Yeah, I think it's always something I've wanted to do a podcast on this for a long time myself. A kind of how does it form? Is it music first, then lyrics? And generally, I think if you asked most artists, they say music first, then lyrics. And again, really weird reference, but I remember hearing the Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood demos, and the original demos with Vince Neil screeching over the top. He was basically making noises, and I know Metallica write in that way as well. The vocal lines are formed out of making noises, and sometimes for us, and certainly for me, the lyrics come from, right, I've got the tracks on, I'm kind of singing along kind of roughly where I want the melody to be. And quite often you start forming words and sentences out of the noises that you are attempting to make. And you think, oh, that's a really good lyric. Write that down. Right, what could that be about?
Yes.
Other stuff, you come up with a concept like Jihatsu, come up with this concept, and kind of that forms the rough theme of the song. And I know at the very, very end, it builds up to quite a heavy bit, and then kind of drops down again with this kind of repeated refrain of "You'll never be alone again, you'll never be at home again." That was a lyric that I wrote before the song became Johatsu. And we kind of read about Jihatsu, and Lee went, well, that's what the song's about. So that's where the rest of the lyrics kind of backtracked into that concept.
No, I'm always interested by that sort of thing, really. So,
on an interesting, sorry, let me interrupt. On an interesting producer's note, if you listen to the very, very end of the track, you can actually hear the rain on the roof of the building that we recorded in when I was singing, because we actually mic'd. It was raining so heavily that day. We actually mic'd up the roof in the background, so you can actually hear the rain.
It's one of those, like, play it backwards and you can hear this. So how are you getting on with we talked about threads earlier before we started this. So how are you getting on with your social media and getting your songs out there? Are you using Spotify streaming services, paid for services, ads? What are you doing?
So in terms of how we get the music out there, it's all distributed via TuneCore, so that all of the streaming services, all the streaming channels kind of get the music at the same time on the release date. In terms of how we let people know that we're releasing, I think one of the positives about the way that we're releasing music at the moment is, we're releasing literally the end of every single month. It helps, and I hate it, but it helps feed that Spotify algorithm. The Spotify and most of the streaming services, they don't want music. They want you to create content, and they don't care about albums anymore, in my opinion. What they want is regular drip-fed content. So we're not deliberately, but we are playing into that kind of regularly releasing music game. And it certainly had an effect that our stream numbers, whilst they're still meager, they're still, we're certainly not multi-millionaires, and we're not Taylor Swift on this, but you can see that our stream numbers are increasing on a monthly basis. The number of people streaming our music is increasing on a monthly basis, and that can only be because we are regularly releasing music. We do a tiny bit, like minuscule amount of paid for promotion on that. We've used, if anyone's vaguely interested, we've used Boost Collective, which is a playlisting service of legitimate pre-checked playlists. So they're not botted playlists, they're genuine human playlists. We've used that before. That's worked okay. What has worked really, really well, specifically Spotify, is we do now use the Spotify marquee campaigns, which basically boosts your release and says, so when people log on to Spotify, it says you might now released participant Johatsu or what have you. And that certainly has had an effect on our Spotify streaming numbers.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of that is algorithmic, and a lot of that is it's a fairly new offering to artists. So again, half of me is thinking, well, that's Spotify attempting to prove themselves right. So if they want you to pay for promotion, you're only going to do it once if it doesn't work. So I imagine that they're forcing the issue a little bit on their algorithms. But again, I don't mind if people are hearing our music.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult for sure at the moment, and I really don't know what the answer is or the solution to getting real traction. You know, I mean, getting some plays and all that is all good, and it's, you know, like I said before, with people with a website that I do, it's I'll post people on it, but it is literally a shop window for everyone. That's all it is. I can't make anyone click on it or listen to it. All I can do is put it out there, and the hope is that I like all of these platforms, is that you build a bigger outlet than you've already got, you know. Yeah. And so if you say, well, we've got 1,000 monthly listeners, and I say, well, I've got 5,000 monthly website visitors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm going to put you on there, and then you go on to the next step, don't you? I suppose.
You do, and I think, you know, I literally, there was someone on Threads earlier saying, how do I get traction with my music? I can post something funny and I get loads and loads of likes and what have you, but I'll post about my music and it's like tumbleweed. I think participant is at a different life stage to some artists. We genuinely are doing this for our own benefit primarily. And yes, it's lovely when I log on to our Spotify account and see that people are genuinely listening to our music. But I can honestly, hand on heart, say that is not the primary aim of participant. The primary aim of participant is to get together and have a musical outlet that I wouldn't otherwise have. Yeah. And so I think we occasionally do get frustrated that we feel like we're shouting into the void, but I don't think we get as frustrated as other bands who are maybe slightly more careerist and slightly more ambitious.
Yeah, I think it depends how you measure any sort of success really in this industry now, and because what everybody might call success now is probably a long way off most indie artists' radar in real terms. You know, if you can get people listening to your stuff and you can do a gig and somebody comes and says, yeah, I really like it, and they might buy something of yours or buy into your Bandcamp or whatever it is you're doing, that's really quite successful in the current climate, I think. But I mean, I had experience recently where somebody, I won't go into much because it's a bit boring, but a big YouTube channel, and they went and played a gig, and there wasn't many people there. And it was,
I've seen that.
It was quite typical of this idea that, you know, numbers, followers does not translate to fans.
Again, you know, I think there are a couple of platforms which I think are very, very typical of that, and TikTok is a prime one where there's bands with hundreds of thousands of followers on that platform, and they're playing gigs to like 20, 30 people. Yeah. Again, people in the industry are signing bands based around TikTok followings. There are gig promoters, even worse, who are putting on bands. I mean, I've seen application forms for festivals and gigs where they've asked you how many followers you've got on TikTok and how many followers you've got on Instagram. Definitely. And it's like, you have no idea whether those people are ever going to turn up and see this band live.
No, that's right.
And the whole beauty pageant of music now is it's interesting to look at from afar, I think. And again, I can't stress this enough. We're very fortunate that we have separated ourselves from this in the fact that we're less interested in that. And you know, if ever you find me dancing in a car park to my own music in a high contrast TikTok video,
Shoot
then I think that's time to that's time to shoot myself. I can't do it, and I understand why people do. I was talking to someone in another band called 9 O'Clock Horses, who are a great band. Down in Leicestershire area.
I've seen the name.
Yeah, great band. They write. Their music's just full of hooks. It's brilliant. And I was talking to Mark, the singer there, and we were talking about this whole TikTok and Instagram Reels music videos. And someone said to him, "Oh well, it's the same as a music video. It's a different way of promoting your music." And I think if you look at it that way, then yes. But my comment on that is miming to your own music in a car park there's no artistry to that. I don't find any sort of integrity or artistry in that. And if you can't do something better than that to promote your music, then I'd argue don't do it.
Yeah, I've always found that if you were going to do something like that for your music, I'd be much more interested if you sat down right there now with the acoustic guitar, picked it up, and goes, "This is how I wrote this song."
Yeah.
Rather than miming along, like you say, in the sunset to the finished track.
Yeah.
And I think that I was reading the other day, and there is a swing towards this, I feel, at the moment on things like YouTube, where there's a bit of people are becoming a little bit more disinterested in what you've just said there, and a bit more interested in the real person, and what's actually going on in their life and how they are doing things. And I think that's a bit of a content shift, really.
I mean, I'm more than happy, I think, to stick our GoPro up in our studio and record hours of footage of us attempting to work out whether the treble should be on 7 on this amp or whether it should be on 8 and playing that. But and maybe edit that down. But I think that is something which comes from a place of integrity, and it comes from a place of being open and genuine about the music that you're creating. Whereas this polished thing that it's Damien Keys, he's got a lot to answer for.
He has.
I mean, he's got nice shirts and a very good tan out of it, so well done to him. I think that content has, for me, hopefully we are shifting away from it.
But yeah, I think it was him who actually said recently that he feels that's what's happening as well, although he promotes a lot of that stuff. So when we talk about releasing your tracks and doing all those sort of things, have you got a plan? Have you got any ambition, or are you just doing what you just said? You just keep doing it because you like doing it and pumping it out?
So we set our New Year's resolutions up this year, and I think that's probably the closest we're going to get to a plan. I do want to experiment with the algorithm, and after me slagging the algorithm off and saying that we're only playing to it because it suits us. One thing I would like to do is maybe hold back and release a bit more of a body of work this year. Maybe release a 4-track EP, a 3-track EP, and then do that waterfall release thing. So we're almost still releasing a track monthly, but it ends up as a body of music. I think that would be quite a nice thing to do this year. We've got more than enough tracks to do that. We've got I'm looking at my computer. We've got a hard drive attached to that, which has got probably another 2 albums worth of material in varying states of completion on it. We're always around 4 tracks ahead of our release. So in terms of our monthly releases, we could carry on releasing now until the end of the year. One of the things that Lee wanted to do was reach a point by the end of the year where we are mixing and mastering ourselves. So I think, again, from our conversation earlier, I think one thing we're going to have to start doing is maybe mixing and mastering ourselves, but then having an external person mixing and mastering, and then we're going to end up comparing, going, okay, why is this one better than this one, or vice versa? And I think so. In terms of ambition, I think that's kind of if we could become a a fully contained duo, that would be
Yeah.
amazing. Basically, if we're Nine Inch Nails, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
We just need to kind of learn that final mixing and mastering stuff, which is there's some dark arts in there in terms of EQing and
There is, and
what have you.
it's experience. I think it's that vision. Like we said earlier,
Yeah.
it's about being able to hear. An experienced mastering engineer will listen to your sort of pre-mix track, if you like, and then hear the finished product in his head.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, I think. So,
and I think both myself and Lee were really good in terms of understanding how something needs to sound. It's actually the process to get from what the raw input into that polished, this is how it needs to sound, kind of understanding that. A lot of that is in the kind of in the EQing and the effective use of compression and blah blah blah.
Definitely.
Up until probably this point right now, I've not got that much interest in. Fortunately, Lee's a bit more techie than I am, so I think I can see him taking on that role in the duo. Other ambitions. I'd like to reach a point where someone's asking us to do gigs, because at the moment have zero intention.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. Again, it's but I'd also kind of like, if someone's asking us to do gigs, it shows that there's a desire for people to see us. And secondary, I'd like to try and understand how we might gig as a duo.
Yeah.
And I think that would be quite interesting. I'd almost like to keep it as a duo. I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, I think personally, I think gigging is a kind of instant would gain number of listeners and people being more interested, because as soon as somebody talks to you like we're talking now about what you're doing, you get a much more interest. I think you get a deeper interest in what they're all about. I mean, talking about the way you've mixed and the way you operate and all that now is going to make me go back to your tracks and start listening to them a bit more. And
okay, that's cool.
And trying to work out. Well, I know what he's using. I know what he's doing. I know there's 10 guitars on here. And can I pick them all out and that sort of stuff. And when you at a gig and you start to interact with people and talk to people directly, because it doesn't matter really. I think everyone. It's one of the things I always say to people about open mics, because I've done a lot of open mics and that sort of stuff. And people say, "Oh, I couldn't possibly play in front of anyone else. I can play in my bedroom all night, but I couldn't play in front." I said, "Listen, when you're up doing your open mic, trust me, 90% of the people in the room wish they were doing it as well."
100%. Totally agree.
So everybody wants to be a friend of the band, as always. Doesn't matter whether you're big or small. No. Somewhere down the line, everyone. So they all want to talk to you afterwards. And they all want to get to know what you're all about. So I think gigging, even in its basic form, is a great thing to do.
Yeah, I think, as I said, the bit that I think I'm intrigued by the challenge of, okay, and how do we do this live when there's only two of us? Do we do it? I mean, James and the Cold Gun, to use them as a really good example, they are effectively a duo. They're a straight up 4-piece rock band. They're a duo. They do all of the writing between the two of them, and then they have other musicians to enable them to play live, and they play straight up 4-piece rock band brilliantly live, and I like that. But I do wonder whether playing to track thing might be a really interesting way of doing participant live. But then if it is the two of us and we did decide to do it live, which elements are we actually going to do live? So it would be an interesting quandary. I quite like the idea of doing it as a 2-piece, but then straight away that's definitely drums on track. Straight away it's definitely a number of guitars on track. Then does Lee play bass and I play guitar and sing, or do I literally just sing? That would be quite cool. But if I'm just singing and everything else is on track, might as well just put that on track as well, and I'll mime it.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know what the split would be. I would, if I was going to see someone do that, I would prefer to see them both playing instruments and both singing. If you both sing on the tracks and you both play instruments, I'd be happier to see a guitar, a bass, 2 singers, with the rest of it behind. And
right, okay,
and that would be my preference, because, like you say, I think if someone's just you basically, other than that, you're doing karaoke, aren't you? Which
100%. And at that point, at what point do I say, well, there's a lot of backing vocals on our tracks as well. Well, those backing vocals aren't going to be sung by anyone else. So those backing tracks are going to have to be on the track.
Yeah.
So at what point are we not a live band? And that's one of my other frustrations with music as a whole now. There's a lot of stuff on track now.
Definitely.
And, I went to see, with my daughter, I went to see an indie band recently. I'm not going to say who they are. They were really good. Had a great time. But there were moments where I was very suspicious as to what I was hearing.
Yeah.
And I will name and shame this band, Bring Me the Horizon. I'm not convinced there's a lot of that that's live.
Yeah.
It's a great show. It's an amazing show.
Yeah.
But how much of it is actually a live band playing?
Yeah.
So,
but now, I mean, there's a big deal about some of the big artists lately in exactly the same way. But the version that comes out of it is, well, you're going to see a performance of that artist. No one said you're going to see a live band. No one said they're all doing it live. You are seeing a performance.
Is that okay, though?
Well, that's your personal preference, isn't it? I wouldn't pay 150, 200, 300 pounds to go and see that kind of performance. I'd much prefer to see a 4-piece live band doing what they do and it not sounding like the record.
Yeah, 100%. I think for us it becomes a bit more of a quandary because to do it live, we would need more members, which actually kind of defeats the object of what we are. So we would have to find the element of compromise there. But, I think it's a hard thing. I've seen many artists call out other artists for not playing live. The incidences where I've seen it, where you kind of doubt the liveness of a band. The bit that I don't like is I have been to see friends of mine supporting other bands. They've come on, they've smashed out an amazing show, and then the headline acts come on and they sound so big and so amazing. And the general punter in the audience look at it and go, oh my God, this band's amazing. And I'm looking at it going, there's only 3 people on stage here. There's more than 3 vocals happening. There's definitely more than 1 guitar track happening. And they've got a 4th member of the band on the laptop at the back. That's the bit that I kind of get slightly uncomfortable with, I think, Tim, where if you're not playing to track, then actually you sound significantly worse as a result of it.
I don't know whether it's different, definitely. Better or worse, I'm never quite sure. I think that's always at the discretion of the person listening, really. So just moving over to the things we talked about getting your music out there, promotion. So I'm interested to know, because of the angle that I come from, which is like the blog side of things and numerous other things. And recently, through other platforms, I've been contacted by 2 or 3 sizable marketing agencies, people like that, who want to hop on the back of our Reddit, some of our Reddit feeds, to try and promote their own services, which is fine. They're all running a business and doing it. But have you used any of those type of things, and what's your view on things like blogs, review houses, pay for review houses, the Groovers, the Muso Soups, the Submit Hubs, that sort of thing?
So I can talk about Groover with a degree of experience, because we have used Groover in the early days. And I think this is how I found you, Tim.
Possibly, yeah, because I do some Groover stuff.
So Groover as a service seems, well, for a start off, it's legitimate. I can say that, because you are paying for a thing to happen, and that thing happens. And we have
whether it's what you want to happen is a different thing. Isn't it?
We have been had our tracks playlisted. We specifically with Groover, because obviously with Groover and similar sites, you can specifically select the type of service that you want. So we were very much down. We want reviews and we want playlists out of it. We kind of got what we wanted, and you know, again, full disclosure, I've got no problem with anyone contacting me and asking me how much we were spending on this. We weren't spending a lot of money, but we got some traction out of it. It certainly didn't hockey stick the public awareness of participant into the stratosphere or anything else like that, but we certainly, you know, I said we paid for reviews, and we paid to be featured on appropriate playlists, and I think that is the thing that definitely worked. The bit for me is always what traction you gain after that. Our play on any streaming platform or any social media or on Spotify, if you want traction, that play has to be a meaningful play. The person who listens to it has to go, oh, this is a new band that I like. I'm in the space to discover new bands. I'll save them, or I'll follow that band and what have you. And I'd say that hasn't moved the dial in the way that I would have liked it to. So we did Groover for a couple of tracks. And then we went on to that Boost Collective, again, spending a similar amount of money. Every single one of our tracks has had some promotional spend behind it in one way, shape or form. Spending a similar amount of money. They basically have curated a bunch of very, very well-listened playlists, and they are regularly swapping tracks in and out of those playlists. So we've kind of got on those playlists. What do they kind of... For a ballpark spend, they will give you a ballpark number of streams. The one thing I'd say about that is it definitely shifts the dial in terms of your vanity numbers of this many people stream my music. But again, in terms of overall stickiness and traction, it doesn't do it. But again, for us, being this band that literally releases month after month after month after month, what it has done, now we've been doing quite a few, the past 2 tracks we've done Spotify campaigns for. They have definitely benefited from all of the traction we've gained from everything else. So you can see that the number of, you can see just in the first week or so, the number of plays we get when we release a new track. It jumps quickly. And it also has legacy in terms of, you see that other people are listening to our other tracks as well. So I think we're a brand new band that no one's heard of. We've only been going a year and a bit. We're not gigging. We're not doing music videos. We're not signed to a major label. So actually, we're not expecting magic overnight, but what we are seeing is definite upwards trajectory.
Well,
does that answer your question?
I mean, it's what I can tell, what I said to other people, is from putting stuff on the website that I do, I know that from some of the analytics I've got there, that people go to that website, they will click on lots of things, they click on images a lot. So I've tweaked things so as that image takes them somewhere, and they spend anything between probably about 30 seconds and a minute and a half generally on the site, and in that time they'll probably click on maybe, I don't know, half a dozen different artists, and it gives me an idea of how to manipulate the site, how to tweak the site to make sure that they're going on, they're getting where they want to go. And the other thing I can see is that some of the big numbers on that site can come from a post that went on a year ago. So it just so happens that somebody might have got some traction somewhere, and that some people have started searching for their name of the band, and it's led them to my site, and they've suddenly started clicking on stuff. I'm thinking, wow, that song was last February. Why has that suddenly got 50 clicks this week? So
I think
what I'm getting around to is, I think the being on the website stuff, because the websites tend to be there for a long time. Your passive scrollers off your Instagrams and your TikToks, they're here and gone, aren't they? It's not very often if you search for something today that the search result will give you a TikTok video for that band 6 months ago.
Well,
That won't
this
happen.
is the thing. So, a person significantly cleverer than me. I work in marketing and advertising for my day job, and someone significantly more clever than me said that social media is like a pub. You know, you walk in, there's loads of conversations happening. You can choose to just observe the conversations. You can choose to join in with the conversations. But then someone else will walk in. They'll change the subject, and those conversations are just lost forever.
Yeah.
Whereas YouTube and websites are like libraries.
That's right.
Where
That's
it's
right.
always around. You know, one of the oldest and most viewed videos on YouTube is how to tie a tie, and that's been around for donkey's years, and people can still come back and refer to it.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that, and I think a lot of the success of playlisting and also website and blog compiling, I guess, is also in the quality. So if you're doing quality content and you're associating yourselves with quality bands, then therefore you will become more and more trusted, and the bands will benefit more from all of that. It's the same as, like, you know, local band gigs. If you go out to a local band gig and you go for a week and every single one of those bands is garbage, you're probably not going to go back the next week.
Well, that's right, and that always gets my interest in that when I put this Q&A thing out there in the first place, there was a flurry of activity. Some people I looked at and I thought, I didn't dislike it, but I just thought I just didn't think the content would be usable. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was usable. So I sort of filtered a few out and dismissed them. So what I will ask you now is, why did you ask to do this? Why did you want to do this?
Because I'm interested in the debate, genuinely interested in the debate. We are a band that exists on social media only. We are a band that wants promotion, obviously. We want people to hear our music. Aside from all of that kind of earlier arrogance of saying we do it for ourselves, it is nice to see that people are listening to the music that we're doing. So, we're doing it for promotion, but I'm interested in the debate. Social media is where we exist as a band, and I constantly rail against social media on a regular basis on my own personal site and what have you, saying what a poison it is, and yet we constantly play into that algorithm. So I'm interested in, are there bands out there, are there music services out there, are there people associated with music out there that are existing on a website and actually benefiting because of that? So that's why I chose to do it, because I want to be part of the debate. I can only come to it from a social media perspective, because that is where we as a band exist, and I think we exist in social media out of convenience, out of necessity, and we haven't got a website because of convenience and because of necessity. Now, 10 years ago, if you didn't have a website, you were dead in the water.
Yeah. Okay, all right, interesting. I'm gonna flip on to another track,
Okay.
and just see. So I'm gonna go down to "Tell Your Friends."
Okay.
I can't say that I've listened to this one, so this is the first time.
Okay.
Guitar riff thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, some hefty chords going on. Nice tempo.
Okay.
Rest it up, it's kind of an irritant. Leave it out to bake. Don't let it
Okay,
touch
so
the
it's
skin. Breathe
fairly
it out.
traditional, probably in its intro. You know, you've got a riff intro, we're on, and then it slows down, and we've got more bass and drums, and we've got the vocals. So tell us a little bit about that track.
Lots of our tracks have working titles before they become the track that they are. This was born out of both myself and Lee watching the rather excellent BBC coverage of Glastonbury, and Queens of the Stone Age played Glastonbury. So this original track, the original track title for this was One Night at Glastonbury, I think, off the top of my head. And it was originally, I think bits of it were written by Lee off the top of my head, but it was very much a reference to Queens of the Stone Age. We're both really big fans of them. I like that muddy production, really MIDI production that they have, and what have you. So it's written in response to that. Lyrically, a lot of the earlier participant tracks were written about the my already referenced teenage breakup of our previous band. So it's very much about that. And for this one, we just wanted to write a banging tune, which was like in that kind of mold of Queens of the Stone Age, where it's that dropped down verse, rested up, it's kind of in return, and then into that soaring chorus that hopefully people latch onto, but very much in that kind of Josh Homme register and what have you.
Okay, so let's try one more, and I've got here the Battle Within.
Yeah, okay. Christ almighty, that wasn't yesterday.
So we've got some
heavy drums.
It's like a synth guitar or something very low.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if is that a guitar with some hefty effects on it.
I think for those people interested in the recording process, that was some mad preset on the quad cortex.
Right. Yeah.
I think you've latched onto another one of our Queens of the Stone Age reference tracks here, haven't you?
Possibly. It's kicking in there, though. Yeah, the kind of... Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
Cool.
Give us a little bit on that one.
Again, in fact, I think this one might have been the one night at Glastonbury working title. But again, I think this one was really, really formed by Lee. He fired this one across. Whenever Lee writes the larger percentage of music, it always comes across for me to write the vocals and the lyric. I don't know whether that's done out of his inability to sing, or the fact that I'm the singer, and so he wants to distance himself from that and say, well, if you're singing the words, they have to mean something to you. And I remember when he sent that across, I literally plugged in my mic. I've got an SM7B mic, and literally plugged in the mic and just yelled along some stuff. And quite often in our music, the first pass vocal line that comes to your head is often the one that sticks, because it's certainly to me, it's the immediately obvious one. And then if that immediately obvious one is good, then surely that's the one that's going to stick for other people as well. I've got my old lyric book here, actually. Every single track that we've written any sort of late is all the lyrics are in here. Again, I think the loose theme of this one is very much around the very bitter and teenage breakup of our previous band. There's a bit of a theme in some of the stuff you write.
Okay, so what's next? Where are you heading? What if somebody said to you, we really like what you're doing, want to put you on a big arena gig, supporting a big band, are you going to say, oh Jesus, hang on, we're not ready for that, or yes, put us on straight away?
We'd almost certainly agree to it. I'm not going to lie to you. We'd almost certainly agree to it. I'm very good at saying yes to stuff and then working out how I'm going to do it
later.
And I'm almost certain that that's what would happen. I said, for me, that the interesting bit of that is how we would do it. Would we do it as a band? Would we do it to track? Would it be a combination of two? I don't know. What's next for us? Again, almost like our New Year's resolutions. If someone asked us to do a gig, that would indicate to us that there is a desire for us to see us live, and so I'd do that. I think the other thing we'd quite like to do, because our mantra is we write what we want to write, it's always going to sound like us, because that voice still comes out of me regardless of what we write. I think we are heading towards doing something potentially a little bit more left field. I think we've forged our path of this is roughly how we sound now, so that we are able to veer a little bit away from it. And we've done a couple of tracks now which are definitely down the very heavy route, which are a lot more kind of screaming and shouting, and if referencing bands like Empire State Bastard and Slayer and what have you. I think I'd like to explore the lighter side of what we do, whether that be a purely piano or keyboards based song. I think that'd be quite nice to show that side to what we do. I think. Sure. Okay. And the other conversation we've had is there the stuff that we're not great at, is there somebody else that could be great at that? So the visual and artistic side of things, could we make this into a Gorillaz style project where we're providing the music and someone with an equal share is providing the visuals? Yes,
that's something that somebody put that question out on Reddit actually the other day. They said they were looking for a band member to be their kind of media producer, if you like. In other words, something along them lines, I would think. And they would be part of the band, but they wouldn't be playing any instruments, they wouldn't be writing any music, but they are still. But the only problem was they wanted them to do it for nothing, because they would say, well, we're doing it for nothing, so you've got to do it for nothing. Yeah. And they said, well, the only issue with that is somebody could come along and say, I'll do all that for you, great, and do all this brilliant content, and then you just split up.
Yeah.
And they said, well,
it's from a band perspective, that's the trapping of being in a band. But that's something that I certainly think it would be really cool to explore. I understand that concept of, well, hang on a second, we're doing this for free. If you want an equal share of free, then you can have that. I think there's a very different thing by saying, but for me to say, I want someone to create our album cover. We've paid people for our logo. We've paid people for our cover art and stuff like that before. That's a very different thing than someone creating a visual identity. That has to be someone who has a vested interest in the band, then, I think. So I don't know. I'm always happy to pay people for a service and a product, but actually I'm not paying Lee to be my bass player. So so that to make it like Gorillaz is a really good example, I think, where that is somebody, admittedly they're making money, so it's a whole lot easier to have that conversation. But that is an art and music collaborative, and it is a project based around that. Now I have no idea about the money splits on that. But that my vision of it is that is an equal share band, and somebody is just someone who's in the band is the guy responsible for making it look great.
Definitely. Yeah, well, it's always an interesting concept, I guess, to somewhere to go. But we shall see. I'll look out for it and see what happens. So,
well, we've got to find it's a case of finding the right person.
So I'm going to call it a wrap for this one now.
Brilliant. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's been cool. I've been interested. I've always seen lots of your posts. I'm always interested in what you're all about, and that's the whole thing, really, because sometimes, well, as we all know, straight text on a page, the dynamic doesn't come across, does it, sometimes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the only thing that comes across on my text on the page is I've got a deep hatred for Damien Keys. So.
yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I really appreciate you contributing to and telling us all the things you've told us.
Glad to.
And hopefully we can get this out there and get a bit of traction and a bit of interest off somebody who might be vaguely interested in what we've been rambling on about. So,
brilliant.
Darren, participant band, really appreciate your contribution, and
thank you very much,
well with your endeavours going forward.
Cheers, Tim. Thanks very much.